Hi, everybody. Welcome to 2026. This is our first session we do every year. The Why Become an Independent Consultant? Why would you want to do that? I grabbed this logo, this little picture from years ago, the new year, new you. I think it continues to be relevant um, because I think a lot of us turn the page, as you can see in this book. We have New Year's resolutions. Um, for a lot of us, it might be the resolution may be, I want to finally get this thing started, this independent consulting practice. So this is a core topic. Core topics are topics we repeat every year. Um, Somebody asked me once, how do you think of something to do 48 times a year? And I said, well, it's easier when you create a routine to things. And one of those things we do is we repeat those sessions that people ask about, that they like, that they think is continues to be evergreen or relevant every year. And one of those is this core topic on why become an independent consultant. Other core topics we do are how to set your fees or marketing, contracting, KPIs. Jesse, who's here today, helps me with time tracking. And so those are different types of things that we do every year in different months. But the January, is the why become a independent consultant. We like to start off with that first question. These are also pieces of presentations that I do when I do a full um, workshop, usually with my friend Laura Keene. Um, and so this is the actually more of an expanded version because I will have to do this in less than 10 minutes because we've got to get into other topics, but this gives me a chance to do a longer form. And then what's also interesting if you're here live, um, is that once we're done recording this piece, the piece that I'm doing right now, we will get into a chat. If you're watching this on YouTube, welcome. We're always happy to have you watching this. If you ever have a chance, you should join us on the live sessions because I think a lot of the best learning happens not because of what I tell you, because, well, I only know so much. It's what happens in the group session. So feel free to join us when you get a chance to do that. All right, I'm going to jump into this presentation on why people do this thing called independent consulting. And obviously, this is taken from the American Evaluation Association perspective, as most of us are program evaluators. And so you'll see that's actually who we surveyed and interviewed, and that's the basis for my experience. So those people who are new consultants who decide to do this thing, we've surveyed them several times over the years. And so a handful of years ago, I think it was actually about 10 years ago, I did a survey as when I was the independent consulting TIG chair. And we asked a series of questions, and one of them was those demographics. So who are these people? Overwhelmingly women. Probably not that surprising if you've done much with AEA. You see that it's a overwhelmingly female profession. Um, Less than half have PhDs, which means, a little more than half have masters, or most people will have masters. It's unusual that people have a bachelor's, but it does happen, and we have some great examples of people who've written books and are very prominent in our profession who have never gotten a master's. But there is often that question, do I need a PhD to do this? The answer is complicated and it usually is drawn out. And it could be its own session, but the answer is, I think that the simple TLDR answer is no. And certainly there's good examples of lots of people who do not have PhDs who are independent consultants and they're very successful. Um, they're overwhelmingly in those middle ages of 33 to 55 years old. Typically, you'll find people who start doing consulting as a side hustle, and then they go full time at some point. But usually they've had some basis of a career in program evaluation or in social science research of some sort previous to starting an independent consulting business or even a side hustle. But why do people do this? Overwhelmingly, it's the independence word, which is central to who we are as independent consultants. And you can read these quotes from the survey here as I do it. But yeah, the independence and the flexibility is too. Some people find themselves out of a job. I know that that's kind of been a case for the last year. Some people choose to move with their spouse, and they don't have the job that they were at before. Um, and so they decide to start a consulting practice, or they decide they want to do things that are not that don't fit a typical 9 to 5 Monday through Friday drive into the city kind of a job, and they want to work from home, and this gives them that opportunity to do that. All right, the next one, or quite frankly, they feel like they can make more money by doing it themselves, and not working through another organization, either it be a consulting practice that they're working for, or perhaps working for a university, or any other way, or the fact that the university was giving them a small piece of it. Maybe you're making a decent salary, but honestly, you can make that much more as a independent consultant, because when somebody writes you a check, it's your money and you can use it however you want. You don't have to give pieces of it away, or maybe you never even see the check. On the opposite side, the flip side of the coin of the good things to do are the worries, right? And so what do people say concern them? Overwhelmingly, it's that uncertainty. Will I ever find another consulting um, you know job? Is it meaning another project? Is this going to all just kind of like diminish? And that's a certain, it's, I got to tell you that fear never goes away. It continues to be out there. Um, you grow thicker skin. And so you see that on the quote, the first quote, the uncertainty one, something always pops up. You'll be surprised if we get a chance to talk about that, how frequently we think, well, this is all going down the wrong direction. And then certainly we find our way and things do pop up. The other worry is frequently we get started and we find that there's too much work. We don't have a work life balance because we don't really well, sometimes we find a good niche and the work keeps coming very quickly, or perhaps we're pricing ourselves too low and we can't really um, pay for another person to come support us, either hire as an employee or as a subcontractor. But yeah, that's something that happens a lot. You worry that you're not going to have enough work, but then you find out you have too much work. Um, Here's a quote from somebody. And then the other piece, and this is why we have such high attendance on our core topic on marketing, is I'm good at my job thing with the data, but I don't really know how to talk to people about how to start and create work. And so that's a piece of what you need to worry about, or people do worry about. I think when we get into the marketing session, which is a couple months from now, I think we do that one in March. The I'm just to jump to the point of that. Usually, we find we're actually pretty good at marketing because it's not about sales, it's about connections, and so that's the big finding there. That if we're good at listening and we're good at kind of attending to people's needs, um, and being good and setting boundaries as well, we're going to be just fine. So that's kind of the big message that you'll find out with marketing. When I attended Gail's workshop, I talked about that before I started recording. Gail used to do the pre-conference workshop on consulting. This was the most important thing that she said to me because it gave me sense of an understanding. When we asked people in 2022 about what type of revenue, full total revenue that they have for the year, how much did they make? And because I was like, I remember I was in my first year going, is this going to continue to grow? Am I going to be able to make a business of this thing? And so, of those people who responded, the people in the first 5 years, 0 to 4, made about on median 83,000. And then what happens is you kind of find your groove. You get a rhythm to your work, and then you'll find, and these are one person operations, about 145,000. And I suspect since we did this in 2022, these numbers might be a little bit higher because of inflation, and we've had to ask for more. So you'll see here, that's a way to look at here's the table version of the chart you just saw. That's the median, and then you can see the 25th and 75th percentiles. So this is kind of where you might expect to find yourself. Um, and so there's 178 people who responded to this. That's an okay data set. 61 in the first 4 years. So, you're dealing with a pretty decent number here. Um, we would all like to be on that max end, wouldn't we? But well, can all hope. But it is nice to know that there is an opportunity for growth and maybe some financial stability in this business. All right. So what I like to do is give my top 10 list. So I have the top 10 reasons why I think it makes sense for people to go into this independent consulting thing. Number 10, and this is my dog Maxwell, and this is actually how he looks at me most days, is to be your own boss. It is the nice ability to set your schedule. You get to determine which projects you want to go after and which ones you don't want to go after. And I had something cross my desk on Tuesday, and it's this college that continues to put out RFQs, requests for quotes, and it's a big pain in the butt to do it. And they never seem to even select me, and they're not actually selecting me for a project. They're selecting me to help them write a grant proposal. I'm saying I think I'm done following up with that college. So as my own boss, I get to choose that I don't want to do that. If I worked for perhaps a research institute and somebody told me to do it, I guess I just have to do it because that's what the boss said. So it is nice to be able to set your own schedule and make your own decisions. Frankly, a lot of us may want to work less. If you're good at your job, if you're good at your independent consulting practice, you will get your work done. And then when you don't need to work, you don't need to feel like you need to do busy work to make up the rest of the 8 hours in that day. If you're done working, you can stop working and go for a bike ride. A lot of people talk about their bike rides here. Or you can go spend time um, with other things that are your other obligations. You can go grocery shopping at 10 a.m. What a crazy thing. You can work where you want. And here's a picture of me with my father. This was a couple months before he passed away in 2021. And I'm here with my sisters and my stepmom. And he lived in Ajajic, Mexico, which is near Guadalajara on Lake Chapala. And I up and went with my sister to my both my sisters, but my sister Sarah. We went to spend time with my father for 2 weeks before he passed away. And so, if you go back to the Icy Topic chats, which are in the YouTube catalog, you can see I was doing the presentations that in that I think it was February when I was there. Yeah, February. And you'd see me in my dad's house, which was pretty wild. So I could do that. I didn't have to ask anybody's permission. It was just what I was going to do. It's great. So people will talk about going on the road and doing tours and things like that. And they stop and people oftentimes vans or whatever. They just work wherever they want to. They don't have to be told where to work. You can work when you want. This is my daughter, Madeline. She is currently 15. In this picture, she is with her friend Kara, and they were in fourth grade, and their school is literally, I can see it right now from my window. It's right down the street from here when they were in fourth grade. Now they're in high school. But I would leave on Tuesdays to go eat lunch with them. And that was great because I didn't have to ask permission to do that. And I was my own boss. You can make more money. And this is a trophy that I received when I finished running a marathon in all of the 50 states. I think it's around here somewhere. Um, anyhow, it was an expensive hobby to do it. The first the first 25, everybody says the first 25 marathons are easy because you're driving to them, and then the second 25 are 3 to 4 times as much because you got to fly places and you got to do these registrations and you got hotels and things like that. So it was a great challenge that I did, and I finished in 2021. And well, anyway, it was an expensive hobby. I was happy to be done with. Uh, anyhow, I had the ability to afford that because of this consulting thing that I do. You get to live your own principles, and I think this is important for a lot of us. Um, Obviously, we're in this crazy world right now where there's shifting principles in the grander scope. which I don't want to go into, but we haven't stopped living our vision and our mission, my partner and I, and the work that we do. And so we get to choose these things. We get to choose how we want to live out our principles through our work. You get a chance to learn new skills, and here's a lot of associations that I've been a part of, and I've helped start the Evaluation Association of St. Louis, and I was its founding president. Been very involved with AEA and the Association for Institutional Research, Indiana Evaluation Association, and the Chicagoland Evaluation Association. I have the opportunity to take some of my revenue from the consulting practice and dedicate that towards my own edification, towards my own learning. Honestly, I think there's job security. And so in the early days, Kokia is one of my first clients, and then SIU Edwardsville was another client. And you can see these things start to pick up, and little by little they grow, and you see these clients continue to come on and come on. We need to update this at some point, but these are all clients that I helped initiate, and I work with subcontractors with now to do a lot of this work. And most of these clients are still our clients. A couple of these the grants have ended, but I have great relationships with people at all these different places. And with time, after 16 years of doing this, little by little, all these relationships continue to compound on each other. And you get kind of a job security out of it because they continue to reach out to you, and it's not the marketing isn't so hard after time. You have a chance to contribute to those things that matter to you. And these are 4 different organizations that in the past I've contributed to, and contributed time and money, more time than money in most of the cases here. But these were wonderful organizations that we worked with. And honestly, it's the opportunity to succeed. And STEM Camp is our big success story here. STEM Camp grew out of some work that I did with military connected school districts. And I compiled 10 school districts together to help me write a grant that we were able to create this program called STEM Camp, which is STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics for kids of active military personnel. And it's a summer camp program. And so here's some pictures of different programs. And actually, if you look really closely, you can see Susan Wolf, who's here today. She's down in the bottom picture there. She joined us when we were in the San Antonio program. And there's Leah Neubauer with her as well. And frankly, and this is the flip side to the opportunity to succeed. And if you've paid attention to me, I like to do that a half idea. We have the opportunity to fail, which I know it sounds like a scary thing, but it's a real thing. And honestly, if you're not prepared to fail, then you're not really prepared to succeed. And so here's a nice quote from Mark Manson, who's a very famous author in this kind of world. With that, when we get into the discussion, I'd love to hear what people have to say would be on their top 10 lists, or what are their thoughts, what are their fears, and I'd love to talk about this. So we'll do that. But before we do that, I want to make sure you guys see what our upcoming sessions are. I'm going to do a new session on discussing your costs. How do you discuss what your costs are when you're putting together a budget? And that'll be a new session that I put together next week. Melissa will be here to talk about professionalism the week after that. Tina, who I don't know if she's here now because I've been talking to this camera and not looking at who's in the room, but she was here right before we broke for the Christmas break. But she wants to talk about some surveying and a newsletter article that she put together for the ICTIG. And then at the beginning of February, I'll do the core topic on identifying your niche. But with that, we can stop, and we'll go into the break. So everybody out in YouTube land, we'll see you later. But if you're here live, stick around.